You may remember taking part in fire drills in school, but in recent years, active shooter drills have become part of school safety plans. And with a recent shooting at a Texas church earlier this week, those active shooter drills are now happening at places of worship. Tonight, On Your Side's Robert Bradfield is taking a closer look at training being offered to churches here on our First Coast to help keep you and your family safe.
White Settlement, Texas, a suburb of Fort Worth, now joins an unfortunate list of cities with a shooting at a place of worship. 3 people, including the gunman, were killed.
No one ever wants to hear that someone came into a house of worship, a place where people are there for being peaceful, and someone comes in with an insane hostile act.
1,000 miles away in Jacksonville, safety and security on the minds of many.
Unfortunately, we see this happening more and more each day that we're alive on this earth.
Ben Carroll is the Director of Ground Operations Development, or GOD for short. He travels the country training churches on how to best be prepared for an active shooter.
And we tell them how to train this to the security and nursery workers and ushers and greeters that are in their church.
He has 4 decades of law enforcement experience with about 60 First Coast churches participating in active shooter training. Next week, he's planning a conference call to review what happened inside the church in Texas. That shooting live streamed during a service on the church's website.
We'll be speaking about what went right and what we could do better or change so that next time that we would have even fewer injuries or deaths and mitigate any other events that may occur.
And in the next few weeks, Carroll is holding training sessions with churches in Clay and St. Johns counties. Now, Grounds Operations Development is also training teachers in several states on how to handle an active shooter in schools. Carroll says that training has taken him to Virginia and Georgia and soon to a Duval County private school. If you would like to know more information on that training, including how you can attend to the churches, you can just look for this story on firstcoastnews.com. And in full transparency tonight, we do want to let you know Carroll is running for Clay County Sheriff. Robert Bradfield, First Coast News, on your side.